All right, Charm City Birdwatch, episode 144, Saturday, March 13th. Recording this in the morning. Championship week is almost over, which means we're one step closer to March Madness fully getting underway, the NCAA tournament. So close. And we got to talk about the Big Ten tournament and Maryland because, look, hey, if you listened last week, the mood, it was not cheery. It was not good. It's not a lot of hope, not a lot of a positive outlook, if you will, on the Terps. I was writing them off. I was so disappointed by the losses to Northwestern and Penn State. Just an absolute collapse after a 5-game win streak where they looked so good. To lose one of those games, again, like I said, it wouldn't have been great. But, hey, to win 7 games in a row in the Big Ten, it's not easy. Again, one loss there wouldn't really have cared. But 2 of them together to close out the season, it just... it sucked. It brought back all of those memories of pretty much the entire Turgeon era here in College Park where they always finish slow. They always limp into the tournament. Even when they have good teams, they just don't finish strong. So, it was extremely disappointing. And I said that I did not think, and I was certainly not going to bet or pick the Terps to beat Michigan State, even though it was a very even matchup. And look, just 2 weeks ago, Maryland handled their business very easily against the Spartans. They, dominated them from start to finish. They handled them easily. From a personnel standpoint, I could tell you that this is not a bad matchup for the Terps by any means. They're 2 very similar teams. They don't have like a prototypical big man at Michigan State either. Just a lot of athletes, 5 athletes on the floor. Michigan State likes to push the pace. They like to run, take advantage of turnovers, rebounds, quick outlet passes. Even with that in mind, though, I said, look, it's a tournament setting. It's March, a Tom Izzo-led team, Mark Turgeon-led team. I'm just not going to bet on the Mark Turgeon-led team. I mean, again, they had not won, the Terps, that is, had not won a Big Ten tournament game since 2016. 17, 18, 19, 3 straight one-and-dones. But boy, I was so wrong. I was so wrong, and I will be the first to admit how wrong I was because I was stunned at how this game went. Maryland comes out, imposes their will defensively, and they got under the skin of Michigan State, and not just the players, of Tom Izzo. Maryland led at the half, going into the break, had a little, and now it's just been turned into a meme, and rightfully so, little interview with Tom Izzo, and he is furious. He's pissed. He's complaining about how Maryland's getting all the calls and all these foul calls on Michigan State, and they're getting to the line more than us and blah, blah, blah. And he was rattled. And it was funny in the moment. And, hey, Maryland's leading and, Tom Izzo's pissed off. That's great. But we still have a whole second half of basketball. I'm not celebrating by any means. I'm not celebrating early. But then in the second half, this is what stunned me. Michigan State was even worse in the second half. They couldn't make a shot to save their life. No adjustments, no answer for what Maryland was doing defensively at all. They just folded. They folded. I mean, Maryland came right back out. They said, we're going to put the clamps on you. We're going to, be absolute pests on the defensive end. Daryl Morcell, by the way. I mean, look, we talk about his defense, but in that Michigan State game, he was an absolute pest. And even in the Michigan game, which we'll get to here, but he's just such a pest, man. And I mean that in the best way. And the entire team buys into that. They like it. They love it. I mean, they've made their living on that this year. That's how they've been reaching the success level that they've had, is on the shoulders of their defense. But Morcell, man, he is just such a pest. And I get why You look at the faces of the opponent, and it's turnover after turnover, and Maryland, they're not scoring efficiently on their own. I mean, they're not a great offensive team. They're not taking advantage of this to the fullest. It's still a pretty manageable game if you're Michigan State, but it's just so demoralizing. Turnover after turnover, they finally drive to the rim, finally get a shot up, don't get a friendly roll. So many missed layups, so many three balls that looked like they were going down, but they rim out. There was a lid on the Michigan State rim in the second half. I mean, it was like a 10-minute stretch. They scored one field goal, I think. It was absolutely insane. And that's a testament to the Terps defense, but at the same time, you don't go 10 minutes with just one field goal or barely any field goals without not getting some unfriendly rolls at the rim. I mean, there's no defense in the country that's going to shut you down completely for 10 minutes. I give the Terps defense credit. They did a lot of the work there, but again, the Michigan State got to the rim a couple times and they just missed these layups. Three balls looked like they were going down. They didn't. I mean, there's only so much the defense can do. And the rest was just bad execution, bad luck, whatever you want to call it. Michigan State did not have it. And I was surprised. I just did not expect to see a team like that completely demoralized, completely dejected, and just they gave up. I mean, it got to a point in the second half where, and the Terps extended their lead to a much more comfortable margin, but you're saying, man, this is over. When have you ever had that feeling in March as a Terps fan? Big Ten tournament or NCAA tournament to go, hey, there's like 6-7 minutes left. This one's over. They cannot score. I was stunned that a Tom Izzo-led team just folded like that. So again, give them credit. A must-win game. Back against the wall. Maryland got the win. They punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament. We're awaiting, the official confirmation that'll come tomorrow night with the selection show. But by all predictions, all of your bracketology experts, Joe Lenardi and the rest of the crew, everyone that does one, pretty much everyone has them in. Maybe they're a 10 seed, maybe they're an 11 seed. We'll see. We'll see where they end up tomorrow, but I think it's safe to say that they're in. That's the good news. The unfortunate news is, a win against Michigan State wins you the fantastic honor, the fantastic prize of facing Michigan the following morning. So, at least the Terps only needed just the one win. They didn't need a little 2 or 3 game win streak, a little 2-3 game run in the conference tournament to punch their ticket. They just needed the one win. You beat Michigan State. Now you face Michigan. You're playing with house money. Just go out there, have fun. Probably not going to win, even if you're at your A game and Michigan is at their B or C game. You're probably not going to win. And just it is what it is. But you never know. It's March. Crazy things happen in March. So they played loose, and hey, they came out in that first half. That's exactly what happened. Maryland played loose. They played like they had nothing to lose. All of their shots were dropping. They looked much more comfortable. Looked like they were a team that got warmed up the day before. Michigan had been sitting around for a little bit with the double bye. And Maryland even led it. Oh my God. They had like 10 or 12 points in the first half. And I was amped. I was loving every second of it. They were getting end one after end one at the rim. Aaron Wiggins, tomahawk dunk, posterizing a defender. Transition buckets. Morcell had a crazy athletic basket in transition. Looked like he was going to dunk, but he went up strong and laid it in with the defender right there and got the end one. I mean, that was... oof. I mean, they were killing them. The 3-ball was dropping left and right. Everyone that jacked up a 3, it was going down, nothing but net. I mean, the Terps were shooting like around 70% at one point in the first half, which is just insane. That's unsustainable for an entire 40-minute game. They went up like 10 or 12 with 5 minutes, I want to say roughly 5 minutes to play in the first half. And look, in a blink of an eye, Michigan. You want to know how good Michigan is? You want to know how much of a game, how much this was a testament to the strength of Michigan and not so much a detriment or not so much a knock against Maryland. Look at the close of the first half. They flipped that in a blink of an eye. That should tell you everything you need to know. Michigan is not just the best team in the Big Ten. They're probably the best team in the entire country. I know people like Gonzaga. I know people like Baylor. Baylor just had a loss. It's probably between Gonzaga and Michigan if you're arguing who's the best. Look, you can call me biased as a Big Ten, a fan of a Big Ten team. I watch a lot more Big Ten basketball than I do West Coast basketball and what Gonzaga is doing. And they're certainly talented, but I don't think it's even close. Michigan plays the best of the best, the toughest teams. They play gritty, tough opponents, trying to knock them off their pedestal every single night, and they are just so damn good. Gonzaga plays nobody. Gonzaga hasn't played anyone since December in their non-conference schedule. They have played such inferior opponents. The worst teams in the Big Ten, Penn State, Nebraska, could probably finish with a winning record in the conference that Gonzaga plays in. It's not even close. So Michigan, in my opinion, the best team in the country, and they showed you why. Turned a 10-point deficit into a 2-point lead at the half. The mood completely changed. If you're Maryland, you go into the locker room and you say, look, hey, we're down 2. We had a crazy good offensive first half. We're right here. We're in this. Let's see if we can, shock the world, come out in the second half and see if the shots keep falling. And there's a chance, technically, maybe they kept up that insane shooting clip that they were at. 65%, maybe even more. But like I said, it's not likely. It's not sustainable, and that's what happened. The second half, the shots just weren't falling. And Maryland cut it to maybe 5 or 6 a couple times, but it really never felt like they were going to, regain that lead or tie it up or come close. It never felt like that, even when they got within 5. 2 of their leading scorers, Livers and Dickinson, held in check in this game. Really did not dominate the way that we would expect those guys to. And Michigan still, no issue scoring. No issue coming back and beating Maryland. With 2 of your best players not having their, a typical game by their standards. That's how good this team is. But obviously, the play on the court is not the big story of this game. Big story happened between these 2 coaches, Mark Turgeon and Juwan Howard. A little bit of a scuffle occurred during a timeout. And, I'm watching on TV like everyone else, and we come back and commentators saying, well, we got a lot to recap here. Juwan Howard's been ejected from the game, and we've got some technical foul shots coming here from Maryland. Like, whoa. What just happened? Juwan Howard got ejected? What is going on right now? Like, again, this is when Michigan was in the second half was starting to really jump out and take control of this game. So, everyone's seen the video at this point. Media timeout, Juwan Howard stepping out onto the court because he's saying, no, the ball didn't go off my guy. You got to look at that. You got to go to the monitor, blah, 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 whatever he's saying, yelling at the refs. And Turgeon apparently is taking a lot of exception to Howard barking in their direction. And maybe this wasn't intended for him. Maybe it was for the refs, but he didn't like that Howard was stepping out onto the court. So he just kind of turned to him and said, hey, get back in the box. Get back in the coaching box. Get back in the huddle. Don't talk to me. Don't talk in our direction. I don't want to hear it anymore. Just fed up with Michigan, and these 3 games that these teams have played this year. Just fed up with them. Looks a little soft, but, frustration. And then all of a sudden, coaches start, talking to each other. And the video's not clear because there's so many people standing in the way, but you see Turgeon come over and he's doing that classic old man, angry old man, the point and the stomp. The point into the stomp as he's saying, you get back. Don't talk to me. So I wish this was a video podcast because I'm just furiously pointing my finger and gesturing here. But he goes, stomping over and they get a little bit close, but the refs get in the way. They didn't get that close to each other. But Howard goes nuclear. I mean, he full-on meltdown. Like rage in his eyes. He is pissed. And I see the video of that, and I'm first thing that I said is, oh no. I am dreading what is coming post-game because what was said to set him off like that. Because again, Juwan Howard, pretty mild-mannered, gets animated like most coaches do, but in the heat of the moment, but to something like that, to get ejected from a game, I just assumed that somebody in the Maryland camp, a player, a coach, I don't know, someone on the Maryland bench would have had to have said something way out of bounds, something over the line, something foul maybe, I don't know. To set him off like that, that's what I assumed. And I thought post-game we were going to be hearing from Howard and say, he called me this, that, the other thing. He said this about my mother, blah, 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 something. I don't know. But I was not gearing myself up for what we actually got, which was, I don't even know where to, it makes no sense. Turgeon says, I told him, hey, don't talk to me. Go into your huddle. Don't walk over here. I don't want to talk to you. Don't talk in our direction. Get back to your side. Blah, blah, blah. That's whatever. And that's seems like a very minuscule thing to get upset about, but Juwan Howard even corroborated that in his statement. And he says, yeah, Turgeon was yelling at me, didn't like that I was outside the coaching box, and he said, don't talk to me. So Turgeon's telling the truth. Turgeon's account, Howard's account, they line up as far as what was said. And that's what set you off? Well, he goes on to say that, well, I'm from the streets of Chicago. I was raised in Chicago, yeah, tough guy, and he charged at me. What? He charged at me, and I had to defend myself. I went into, fight mode. You're 6'9". You played in the NBA. Mark Turgeon's 5'10". You're almost a whole foot taller than Mark Turgeon. I believe you're like 8 or 9 years younger than him. And even if he did charge at you, again, that's not true. I mean, he kind of walked in your direction. He was angrily pointing and yelling. But he charged at me? Give me a break. This is what made you have a full meltdown? That's bad coaching. I mean, that's, look, to say that you can't get animated there, to say that you can't get fired up and do some yelling of your own, sure. But you got ejected. That's bad coaching. I mean, you lost your mind. You can't do that. You can't lose your mind like that in a March tournament game. I could not believe that that's all there was to the story. I don't think Mark Turgeon looks the best coming out of this. I think he looks a lot better than Howard. To say after the game, I called the league office because, I'm tired of him coming out of the coach's box and talking to our sideline and, that's not right and whatever. But it's like, dude, come on. Because really, I think, what set him off was really, this all goes back to Hunter Dickinson. This all goes back to that first game on New Year's Eve. When these teams met, Hunter Dickinson went off. A local kid went to DeMatha, scoring left and right, and after every basket, he was flexing, taunting, barking at the Maryland bench at Mark Turgeon. Ended up doing it so much that the refs in that game gave him a technical, told him to knock it off, and then I think Juwan Howard was like, hey, man, knock that crap off, all right? You made your point. And Turgeon took exception to that because, and I think Everyone should take exception to that. I don't know how you can side with Hunter Dickinson. And that's not just a Maryland fan speaking, because look, what is he mad about? This happened months ago. But again, what is he mad about? Apparently, look, he went to DeMatha and he's saying, hey, you could have had me. Maryland, you should have recruited me harder. What are you talking about? That's just complete BS. That's not just twisting the truth. That's not a white lie. That is a bold-faced lie. Maryland brought you in for a full visit as a sophomore in high school. There was an offer in your hand, a full scholarship offer from Maryland when you were a sophomore in high school. You turned it down. You went to Michigan, not a bad place to land. You landed on your feet, but what are you mad about? They didn't recruit you? That's a lie. They didn't recruit you hard enough? Also a lie, because they were one of the first schools to probably give you an offer. What more do you want? And now I'm hearing stuff about, Dickinson played for an AAU team that's affiliated with Nike, Maryland, obviously an Under Armour school. That factored into the decision. I'd like to think that it was just as simple as, Michigan came knocking and said, hey, why don't you come play for us? And he's like, well, yeah, this is a better school. It's a better basketball program. I'm going to go there. That's fine. I'd choose that too. But then to come out and say, oh, you didn't recruit me hard enough, and then bark at the bench and try to taunt them and do all that, that is ridiculous. That is clown behavior. And again, if this AAU stuff, the Nike, Under Armour, blah, blah, if that's true, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's how the kids are operating these days. I wish it wasn't true, and I'm not putting the most stock in it, but I'm not completely brushing it to the side. I think it could be a factor, and it wouldn't surprise me, because that's just how the kids operate these days. You know how they get on social media, they create these narratives for themselves. They're always, they're always the one being counted out. They're always the one with the chip on their shoulder. And they got to do this, that, and they got to chirp people on social media. They got to run their mouth at a young age when they haven't proven anything. Really, at this point, I just hope that Dickinson hangs around. Because, again, what is he, 7'2"? Big Ten Freshman of the Year? I don't know if he's going to the NBA this year. I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe at most, I would think he stays one more year, maybe to refine some things some more. But after the year he had and his height and his size, I think the NBA is calling. I think the NBA is calling. So I hope he sticks around, just because no fans this year. He needs a proper College Park welcome next year when Michigan travels to College Park. He needs a proper welcome from the student section and the crowd. And that's the other thing here. It's not just Michigan and Maryland going at each other. Everyone else in the Big Ten has a problem with Michigan. Illinois, boy, I hope we get that championship round tomorrow. If Michigan and Illinois can both advance from the semifinal and face each other in the Big Ten tournament championship, those teams, they don't like each other at all. Not a lot of people like Michigan. Not a lot of people like Hunter Dickinson outside of Michigan. But that's the full rundown here, and I guess Turgeon's pissed about that. And really, I guess all of this was just brewing, and it spilled over here. And in the end, we just get some entertaining little confrontation here and something to talk about, which, hey, never a bad thing, right? Well, that's the Terps. Let's get off of that. Got a little bit of Ravens news to get to here. Free agency going to officially start in the next couple days here this week. I believe St. Paddy's Day, the 17th, is the start of free agency. So going to be a frenzy. It's already been a frenzy. The cap has been officially set for the 2021 season. The salary cap much lower than previous years. Took a dip, so there's been a lot of casualties, a lot of good players that probably usually wouldn't be let loose have been let loose. The free agent pool is going to be it's going to be very full this year. Again, if you're looking for a positive here, going to be a lot of guys on the open market. And, teams across the league are going to have to get creative if they want to create space and get back to a point where they can try to operate as usual. And one of those ways to do that is to restructure some of your biggest contracts on your team. And the Ravens, among a lot of other teams in the league, have done just that. Marcus Peters, first person to hop into Costa's office, and they have readjusted some money. I believe pushed it back to next year. I was reading a tweet by Brian McFarland at Russell Street Report. So according to him, they didn't go... It sounds like they didn't clear the max that they could. According to him, they could have cleared like $5 million in cap space. They end up clearing $3.5 million in space. Pretty good chunk. And it sounds like it just gets pushed back the next year. So there'll be an even bigger hit for Marcus Peters next year. Ideally, that's not the best, but in the situation we're in, the cap has been lowered in 2021. Most likely, if we get back to normal and we have a normal 2021 season, most likely the cap will go back up to where it normally is, or maybe even higher. We'll go back to an upward trajectory in 2022. So at that point, the cap hit, not great, but it's not as it won't be killing you. But you got to do what you got to do this year, and especially for a team like the Ravens, who are in a win-now mode. They're in a Super Bowl contending window. You got to do what you got to do to create space this year. So Marcus Peters, I don't think he'll be the only one to restructure. I think some of these other big contracts, Ronnie Stanley, Brandon Williams, Marlon Humphrey, Calais Campbell's got a pretty big hit. He could restructure. Even Justin Tucker, if they want to really squeeze every last cent that they can, he could restructure. So we'll see. Hopefully some of these other guys clear up some space and the Ravens give themselves some more wiggle room to work with, because they've got holes to fill. They got quite a bit of holes to fill, and we know them. People want a wide receiver. People want O-line upgrades, maybe a vet middle linebacker. But one of the spaces that is going to be completely in need of just anybody, they just need bodies in general, is pass rush / outside linebacker. And look, some of that freed up money has already been put to use. Pernell McPhee is going to be coming back. We don't have the details on this contract. We know he has agreed to come back. My guess is this is a one-year deal. Very, very low sum of money. Very small contract, but Pernell McPhee going to be coming back for the 2021 season. And really, underrated year for Pernell McPhee in 2020. And I'm not just talking about the exceptional game he had against the Titans, where he was all over the place and he was just looked like he was 5-7 years younger. No, he had a really good year overall. Stayed healthy. Played a full season. I don't think he missed any games with COVID either. Could be wrong about that, but still healthy for the entire year. And McPhee, that we didn't talk about him at all last offseason. I think a lot of people forgot he was on the team, to be honest, especially after the additions they made. They brought in Calais Campbell, brought in Derek Wolfe. I think people forgot that Pernell McPhee existed. And then the year starts and he's still at the team. Rotational piece. Oh yeah, McPhee's out there. That's cool. But can he hold up for an entire year? Well, he did. He held up for an entire year. I'm not going to say I was super surprised. I give him credit, but after, a season-ending injury in 2019, plus you combine that with his age, just not really sure what kind of impact he could have in 2020. So for him to play at the level he did as a rotational piece, great year. Great year for him. Really underrated piece on the Ravens defense last year. Made a lot of plays, did a lot of the nitty-gritty. Even after they brought Ngakoue in at the trade deadline, McPhee was still getting thrown out there quite a bit because he was winning his matchups. He was creating pressure. He was doing his job at a high level. So I obviously welcome this. I think, look, one-year deal. I'm in favor of it. I'm assuming it's going to be very cheap. And again, let's look around. That pass rush unit, that outside linebacker group, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be pretty barren here in the coming days. Again, free agency about to start. I think Matt Judon, Yannick Ngakoue, and Tyus Bowser have all priced themselves out of Baltimore. At best, they can retain one of those guys. But the question is, do you want to retain one of those guys? Is the price going to be right? And I just don't think it is. So you're going to lose 3 guys right there in your pass rush group. And that leaves you with, look, you got Pernell McPhee and you got Jalen Ferguson. That's it. And Calais Campbell, I guess. But he's moving all over the place. That's not a lot. That's pretty barren. The cupboard is bare. So obviously I welcome the bringing McPhee back. Good to have a nice depth piece like him. And while we're on the subject, look, hey, let's bring Jihad Ward back. Another cheap deal. You could get this guy back in, another 1-year deal. Seems to like playing here. Bring him back, keep that depth in place, good rotational pieces that know your system, that know Wink Martindale's system. Good to have guys like that. So I would welcome them bringing Jihad Ward back as well. But even still, they've got a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do. And I've talked about this in the past, and I'll keep saying it. I really want to see them use, if not their first-round pick, their second-round pick on a pass rush. They need to use a premium pick on a pass rusher. I look, the chips might fall in a different way. The draft is an unpredictable beast at times. Maybe they end up getting a receiver, an O-lineman with their premium picks. You don't know. Those are other groups that people would like to see an addition at, but I'm telling you, they need a pass rusher. They need one bad. Maybe they can scoop another free agent. You never know. I mean, look, the free agent pool, there's going to be a lot of big names that are going to hit the open market here. And with the cap space this year, it's not just 1 or 2 teams that don't have the cap space. Everybody doesn't have the usual cap space. So maybe free agent contracts that are getting handed out, not on par with what we're used to. And that could be the case for guys like Judon and Ngakoue. They could end up getting not what they were expecting. Maybe they take like a 1-year deal, just a hold me over deal. Maybe not with the Ravens, could be with anybody. They sign a 1-year deal for a pretty decent sum of money, but they're not going to lock themselves into a 4 or 5-year deal with the outlook that we have in 2021. Let me take a 1-year deal, good chunk of money, hit the open market again next year when the cap space is back to normal, and then I'll get my payday. That could happen. I don't know. I'm not a GM. I'm not an NFL GM for a reason. So I'm going to be waiting like the rest of us to see what happens here in the coming days. So there could be guys on the open market that the Ravens could scoop up for, even, again, if it's a 1-year deal, a cheap 1-year deal, bring them in. You've got a Super Bowl window. You're competing. It's not a great feeling when you're trying to fix an issue or fix a serious hole and just slap some duct tape on it. That's not a great feeling, like signing a 1-year deal. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And if you're a team like the Ravens who's trying to win a Super Bowl now, signing 1-year deals, it's not a bad place to be. You know, you're delaying the issue. You're going to be right back in the same spot next year, but you might be a Super Bowl champion this time next year. So at that point, it would be very much worth it. So we will see what happens. It's going to be a crazy week, I can tell you that, in the NFL. All right, I mean, that'll about do it here. Don't have much in terms of baseball, but I did want to talk about this before I wrap things up. Nick Markakis officially announced his retirement yesterday. Longtime Oriole, then went to the Braves and saw some even more success there. I think 9 years of his 15 with the Orioles. Man, I mean, a salute to Nick Markakis. Just wanted to spend some time here, giving him his due. Everyone's already done it, but you can never give a guy like this the amount of credit that he truly deserves. And if you're like me, if you're in your early 20s, even your late 20s, Nick Markakis is a guy just like Adam Jones that you grew up watching play every day for the Orioles. And he was here during the bad times, and then when the team got good again in 2012, he was here for that, and he was part of the little successful run they had between 2012 and 2014, and then couldn't work out a contract. He wanted 4 years. Orioles only wanted to give him 3. There were the concerns about the injury. He ends up going to the Braves. So shout out to Nick Markakis. Was always one of my favorite Orioles. It was him and Adam Jones. And look, you go back to the days where the team was good. There's so many guys, so many great guys to cheer for. Jones, Markakis, J.J. Hardy, Matt Wieters. Just a fun group. Just a real fun group. And then you got Machado in the mix when he came up as a rookie in 2012. But Markakis was up there. It's just the guy that, a quiet guy, not the vocal leader, but a great pairing with a guy like Adam Jones, who was the vocal leader. And Markakis, from what we've heard, he's the guy that would talk when he needed to in the locker room, and the type of guy that when he speaks, everyone listens. Because he shows up every day, grinds every single day, every at-bat, from spring training to the regular season, and he did it the right way. And that's the type of ball player, as consistent as all get out, that if you've got kids, or you were a young kid growing up and watching Nick Markakis play, that's the guy you point to and say, hey, that's the guy you want to be like. Is he going to the Hall of Fame? No. Is he, one of the most recognizable, iconic players in league history? No. But I'll be damned if you find me someone as consistent as that for as long as that, and someone who just exemplifies how to play the game of baseball the right way. I remember 2014 when he, that off season, after the disappointment of getting swept by the Royals, and now we got these free agents, and Nelson Cruz, they let him go. Now Nick Markakis is gone. I was not happy. That was one of the first times I can remember, and I wasn't a kid. 2014, I was in college. I remember where I was when I heard the news. I was devastated. I might as well have been a small child with the way I reacted. I was not happy at all, and that's one of the first times, and really one of the only times, that I can remember a player leaving in free agency or whatever, or being traded, and me being just really upset about it and disappointed. And my last memory here, I remember being at the game, I guess it was 2015, I guess it was the following year, where the Braves was one of those years where they matched up and they got to play the Orioles. And not just that, an interleague game, they came and played at Camden Yards. I don't know, it was in the middle of the summer, it was the middle of the season, and I remember I was at that game, and Nick Markakis came back, and he got a standing ovation before his first at-bat. Great moment. And then hit a double down the left field line. It's right back to his old ways at Camden Yards. And I remember we were sitting down the first base line in the outfield, and we were right there sitting kind of next to the right field area where he was playing. And one of my fondest memories of going to an Orioles game was his game. He came back, and the Orioles won. So it was a great night overall. He got to, give Markakis the ovation he deserved, but the Braves still lost. So perfect night, if you ask me. I think it was a Matt Wieters walk-off. Great game. All right, that'll do it for episode 144. Thank you guys, as always, for listening, and, spread the word. Keep spreading the word. Tell a friend, family member, coworker, whoever. Just spread the word. Tell them they can find it anywhere. YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify or on Apple, SoundCloud. everywhere. Anywhere you want to listen to a podcast, we're there. Be here next week. We'll see. Might have to wait until Tuesday of next week to get an episode in here, depending on when Maryland is playing. I don't know if their first game is going to be on Friday or Saturday, and if they win that game, they'll play, either Sunday or Monday. So we'll see. We'll have an episode for you next week. We'll be very much focused on the Terps, how they do in the NCAA tournament, and obviously probably a lot to get to in terms of free agency in the NFL. We'll be here to talk about that. That'll be episode 145 coming to you next week. We'll talk to you then.